What is change? One of the most stable thing is change. Because change is inevitable. You cannot avoid it. Life is in steady motion from the atomic to the cosmic level, believe me. And we are changing right along with it. From the atomic to the cosmic level, we are changing right along with it. They can be positive changes. They can also be negative changes. One thing definitely to understand is that it's not about the changes. So don't worry about changes. It is about how you react to these changes. And that is important. So it is not about the change per se. It is about how you react to that change. And that's what matters. Yep. Now, various psychologists across the globe have contributed significantly in explaining an individual's response pattern or reaction patterns towards change, since it has an impact on different life events. We go through life. A lot of events take place. We go through situations, dynamics. But change plays an important part. One of the greatest psychologists of his time, Erik Erikson, spelled Erikson, right, has considered an individual's entire life as a learning platform. It's like a platform. It's a learning platform. So that means at every stage of life, we are learning. And that learning influences our reactions to the transformations, or in other words, changes. Yeah? So now, look at Erikson. He was there in this wonderful world between 1902 to 1994. 92 years he lived. And he was born somewhere near Frankfurt in Germany to Danish parents. Erik Erikson has made a significant contribution to the developmental psychology. Especially his major contribution has been the theory of psychological stages, which is what you're going to be discussing. And that's a wonderful introduction to talk about the change response patterns. He has also coined the term identity crisis. Very important. Experiencing a difficult childhood, he himself struggled with his own identity throughout his youth. Right? Caught between what I am or what I want to be to what other people telling me to be. That's an identity crisis. Right? Erikson's psychosocial stages. Psycho means mind, social means my interaction with the environment. Right? I interact with a lot of people. Both my own mind, my heredity, my genetics has an impact, and my interactions in the environment in which I grow, I live, I study, I work also has an impact. They are an expansion of Sigmund Freud, father of psychoanalysis. He had propounded 5 stages of psychosexual development. So what happened here? You see the difference? Erikson spoke about the psychosocial stages, whereas Freud had already propounded a theory of psychosexual development. So it is one step, deeper. He took where Freud left and then developed it further. And that's why it becomes very important for us to understand that dimension. While Freud believes that an individual's personality is mostly shaped by his or her childhood experiences, because Freud used to say, by age 4, you're 80% of an adult. By age 6, you are 90% of an adult, right? That's the childhood experiences. And that shapes the adulthood. That's what Freud said. But Erikson said that humans evolve throughout their lifespan. That means even when you are 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50, 60, 70, 80, as long as you are there on this Mother Earth, you are evolving, said Erik Erikson. And that's an important addition to the Freud's theory. Taking it forward, Erikson developed his theory of psychosocial stages. Here, he talks about the various phases of change that an individual goes through throughout one's lifetime. And it has an impact on the person's response to different stimuli. There are so many things which are provoking you, stimulating you, right? Moderating you, manipulating you, right? Influences from across different forces that you interact with in the society, and including social and cultural influences on personality and behavior. Remember, Freud had left out the social and cultural influences, and this is where a significant contribution Erik Erikson came from. Now let's look at influences on life changes. Erik Erikson. He said he identified almost about 8 stages, starting from being an infant to a toddler. From a toddler, you move up to be a preschooler, to a grade schooler, to a teenager, then you become an young adult, then you go through the middle age as an adult, and you become an older adult, during the old age. So let's start with the infant. Infant phase is what we call it as 0 to 18 months. And 2 most important things that happen is trust versus mistrust. Either I grow as a baby, right, as I experience life, because I have very caring parents, caring caregivers around me, right? So the moment I cry, moment I'm hungry, moment I wet myself, what happens immediately? There is somebody to attend to me, give me the warmth, give me the attention, make sure that my needs are met. What happens? I am likely to grow in trust. But imagine exactly, I don't get that warmth, I don't get my needs met, I'm hungry for hours together, nobody feeds me, or days together, nobody feeds me in time, right? I'll wet myself and I'm left to, lie down in my urine and things like that, in that wetness, for long hours. What happens? I am likely to grow as a baby with mistrust. And that's how the entire dimension is. So trust versus mistrust, 2 extremes of behavior can happen. That is a life experience in that stage of infancy. Trust versus mistrust. Now what happens when I'm 18 to 36 months? It is autonomy versus shame and doubt. Autonomy is independence. I'm able to do things on my own. I'm able to brush my teeth on my own. I'm able to use the toilet and wash myself and come out. I'm able to eat on my own. I know how to use my hand or my fingers, my fork and spoon, or in the chopsticks, right? Okay, wonderful. Autonomy. I feel independent. And parents say, no, people around me tell me, oh, very good, good boy, good girl, right? You know how to handle it. But imagine I cannot handle it. What? Such a grown-up boy, such a big boy, big girl, you still don't know how to do it. I am put to shame and doubt. So the modalities shift, 2 extremes, autonomy versus shame and doubt. People grow up like that. 36 months means the baby is already 3 years old now. And what happens 3 to 6 years? Initiative versus guilt. Now that the person is growing up 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, right? That's why again I repeat, Freud said by age 4 you're 80% of an adult. By age 6 you are 90% of an adult. Look at that, 3 to 6 years, initiative versus guilt. Whatever initiatives I do is appreciated, I feel recognized, I feel rewarded, I feel my self-confidence grows, there is a boost to my self-ego, self-esteem, things like that, right? Whereas if I make mistakes, if people keep on scolding me, correcting me, telling me that you're wrong, what happens to me? Yes, I know I'm making mistakes. Yes, no, I know I'm failing. What happens to me? I am likely to grow up with guilt. So that's why it is initiative versus guilt. And that's already 6 years. Now when I move from 6 years to puberty, which is till the teenage, industry versus inferiority. I am busy in my own world, going to the school, doing my homeworks, passing exams, taking part in the school activities along with my fellow classmates and schoolmates, interacting with teachers and other elders, right? So what happens? I have industry, I am active versus inferiority. I compare myself. That is why they say you should never compare your own 2 children, neither compare your child to the neighbor's children or to any other child. You can compare my own last performance to my present performance, but you cannot compare me with somebody else. What happens when you compare people to people, person to person? The chances are inferiority complex steps in, right? And so the battle In that age, 6 years to puberty, is between industry and inferiority complex. The child has to brave it. If he comes out successfully, very good. But if he doesn't, he will have this inferiority complex for a long, long time in his life or her life. Then comes adolescence. In effect, teenage. Identity versus role confusion. See, adolescence is a very important age because there are hormonal changes. Right? You have a huge change in the hormonal. So what happens? Suddenly, the young boy or the girl, right, is no more a young boy or a girl. Now they are moving towards an young adult because physically hormonal changes are there. They are capable of producing a child. And that is where huge changes within the body. And here, because now physically I am as good as any other adult, but mentally I may not be. So that's where the question is, people still treat me like a child, but I think I'm an adult. I am caught in between. That's the transformational change, right? Identity versus role confusion. I'm confused. On one hand, I'm told you're good. On the other hand, I'm told, no, you just follow, you just obey me. Very difficult for a child to understand. So they go through this in search of identity. You remember Erik Erikson himself went through identity crisis. It happens to each and every one of us. Now, if the environmental conditions are good, we can really help this teenager, the adolescent, to tide over that and then come out very, very strong. Then, of course, you have the young adulthood. As I complete my teenage years, adolescence, I move into young adulthood. It is very common. Young adult looks for intimacy, she or him. Right? They want girlfriends, they want boyfriends. They want to interact, right? And they need somebody closer. But if I have it, it's okay. If I don't have it, I feel isolated. I feel left out. I feel lonely because all my friends have it. Only there is something wrong with me. You realize isolation can bother a lot of young adults because they want to, but they don't know how to. And that's a problem. And now you have the middle age. As you step into middle age, intimacy versus isolation in young adulthood, but in the middle age, it is generativity versus stagnation. You see a lot of adults go through stagnation in their careers. They are stuck. Maybe initially everything was okay, initial job, initial growth, everything fine. But now many years have passed. I've not got my promotion. I'm still doing the same job. I'm not given additional role and responsibility. I seem to be stuck in my life. I seem to be stuck at work. I seem to be stuck in my home. I seem to be stuck in my life, right? I don't know what to do. So it is like, I'm in my own shell. And that is stagnation. There are people who are jet set, who are really climbing the ladder, promotion after promotion, new responsibilities. They're traveling here and there. They are in demand. They are holding different positions. They are, members of so many organizations and associations. People want them as a secretary, the president and treasurer and, committee member, etc., etc. What is happening? Life is moving fast. Generativity. And of course, middle age leads to old age. When a person is old, retired, 60 plus, 70, 80s, 90s, as they head towards their hundreds, there is a reflection. Hey, what is the life all about? Was it really worth it? Did I do something wrong? Right? What is happening is there is a despair. I think life has no purpose, no meaning. I don't know what happened to me. Anything that I did, anything I worked really did not help me, right, go forward. And that's a problem. So whereas a few people, they look back at their life and say, hey, wonderful. Look at this. I achieved this. If you look at one of the former presidents of India, Abdul Kalam, right, he died while lecturing. He was a scientist. He was a nuclear scientist. He is the president of India. He's called the people's president. Most active person. So what happened when he looks back at his life, academic satisfaction, work progress satisfaction, and he's reached the highest stage of one's life. And there is that ego integrity. So now if a person has ego integrity, fine. Now you look at all the the positive sides: the trust, autonomy, initiative, industry, identity, intimacy, generativity, and ego integrity. Wonderful life. On the other side, mistrust, shame and doubt, guilt, inferiority complex, role confusion, isolation, stagnation, and despair. So that is why influences on life changes are very critical for us to understand the concept of change itself.
So we have come to understand that social optimization stages, life changes at every stage of life, right? So it is trust versus mistrust, autonomy, shame and doubt, initiative, guilt, industry, inferiority, identity, role confusion, intimacy, isolation, generativity, stagnation, and ego integrity at every stage of life. Know your mind now to plan your life, your career, your relationships, or your business. Drop in an email, reach for help at theassessmentworld.com. Wish you all the best.